Happy Halloween, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm very excited because I did a nail set for one of my favorite movies growing up and still to this day. I recently saw it playing on TV and I just knew I had to do a nail set for it. Now, I cannot draw at all, as I have said before, and so it was nothing like I envisioned. I had to make several changes to my original idea in order to accomplish some kind of nail set for this video, but I'm excited nonetheless because the main idea behind this whole video is to kind of do like a ghost story type thing where it's more of you guys just watching me work while I tell you about this movie. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Sit back, relax. Let me know if you guys have seen this movie because anytime I ask anyone about it, nobody knows about it or has not seen it at least. I'm gonna pull up some information here because I'm gonna be reading a lot for this movie because I want you guys to know all the good stuff about this set. Okay, so the movie that I am talking about is 13, is it 13 or 13th Ghost? Oh, I guess it's only, I never knew that. Okay, so the movie that I'm talking about is called 13th Ghost, and the movie apparently came out in 2001. Let me read you a quick synopsis of what the movie is about in case you've never heard of it. I have my iPad here with all the information, so if you see me looking to the side, that is why. So I am actually going to be reading off all the information from this website that I found just through Google. They have information about all the ghosts from the movie, the Black Zodiac and all that stuff, so that's where I'm getting my information from. I'll link the website in the description if you want to go and check it out yourself. But by the way, I'm sorry for the background noise. There's not much I can do about it. It's already late. I'm not gonna stop filming because I need to get this video posted. Arthur and his two kids, Kathy and Bobby, inherit his Uncle Cyrus's estate, which is a glass house that serves as a prison to 12 ghosts. So when the family, accompanied by Bobby's nanny and an attorney, enter the house, they find themselves trapped inside of an evil machine designed by the devil and powered by the dead to open the eye of hell. Aided by Dennis, who is a ghost hunter, and his rival Kalina, who is a ghost rights activist who is out to set the ghosts free, the group must do what they can to get out of the house alive. Basically, this Uncle Cyrus is a ghost hunter who spent his life collecting spirits to put into this house, okay? As I read, the house contains 12 spirits, right? And so I'm gonna go through each one of them and tell you a little bit about each of the spirits because these spirits are just insane. They're creepy like crazy. So these spirits are actually known as like the Black Zodiac. So the Black Zodiac is a darkened version of the normal Zodiac. The more eldritch Black Zodiac is divided into 12 arcane signs. Unlike its counterpart, these signs represent 12 earthbound ghosts necessary to gain access to the Ocularis Infernum, also known as the Eye of Hell. In addition to the 12 standard ghosts, the Black Zodiac also encompasses a 13th ghost, hence the name of the movie, the Broken Heart. So this spirit is a final ingredient in the spell to fully activate the machine that is built in this house due to being sacrificed willingly out of an act of pure love instead of misery. You guys have to watch this movie. If you guys haven't seen it, after you finish this video, make sure you watch it. So what I did for this nail set was I chose to do the arcane symbols for each of these zodiacs because I can't draw. And so there's 13. I put all 13 on 5 nails. And then I used door hinges to put like a glass door over these symbols to represent them being in their, I guess you can call it like their cage. And then on these glass doors are actually barrier spells. And that is what's going to keep them from crossing. So that is what I did. And I also did a secret element where if you see the movie, in order for the ghost to be seen, there are these glasses that you need to be wearing. So you have to be wearing these glasses in order to see the ghosts. And then you can even see like blood and all that stuff. So that is the secret element that I put in my nail set. And I was so proud of how everything came out up until the like Latin spells on the actual door, because I couldn't write on my nails with how tiny it had to be. Like, I just could not figure out how to write letters on my nails, so I just did blobs of glow-in-the-dark pigment. So I'm sad about that. But anyways, let's go back to the ghosts. We're gonna go through each ghost and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about their story. By the way, I do want to put out a disclaimer that there is gonna be some sensitive, disturbing information when I'm reading you the little background stories on these ghosts. So just a fair warning, it can be graphic. I'll totally understand if this is not your thing. You don't have to watch this video, but just wanted to put that out there. There are 13 souls bound to Earth, foretold and described in the Arcanum, which make up the Black Zodiac, and these are as follows. So the first ghost in the Black Zodiac is the firstborn son. As a child, Billy was fascinated by Western films and wouldn't allow anyone to keep him from them. One day, a neighbor taunted Billy into a duel in which Billy used a toy gun. However, his toy cap gun was no match for the real steel-tipped arrow the neighbor was using, and he died when the neighbor shot it through the back of his head. The neighbor kid was later arrested and sent to juvie. For his weapons, he uses a tomahawk. Upon his death, his ghost incarnation can be seen wielding a tomahawk axe as his weapon of choice, which is ironic for him since he dressed mostly as a cowboy. So that is the firstborn son. Next we have the torso. So the torso is the ghost of Jimmy the Gambler Gambino, and is the second ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. Jimmy Gambino was obsessed with gambling and would spend his days at the track instead of at school, and his nights gambling in seedy bars. Jimmy eventually opened his own booking business, though he was barely able to make his payoff because of his compulsive gambling, and he quickly developed a reputation due to his refusal to turn down a bet. Jimmy's inability to turn down a bet eventually caught the attention of a mobster and made man, Larry Finger Vitello, who bet heavily on a boxing match. Jimmy agreed and sealed his fate. When Jimmy's fighter was defeated, he fainted. When Jimmy awakened, Larry and his gang arrived to collect Larry's winning from Jimmy. But because Jimmy was cleaned out, instead, they cut Jimmy's body up, wrapped the pieces in cellophane, and dumped him into the ocean. Okay, the bound woman is the ghost of Susan LeGros and the third ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. Susan LeGros had a privileged life and was a member of her school's cheerleading squad. Her parents were the richest people in town, thus instantly making her the most popular girl at school. During her senior year, Susan dated the captain of the high school football team, Chet Walters. When Chet caught Susan with another boy on prom night, he clubbed the boy to death before tying Susan up and strangling her with his tie, breaking her neck. He buried her body under the 50-yard line of the school football field. Next, we have the Withered Lover. Jean Criticos, also known, according to the Black Zodiac, as the Withered Lover, was the late wife of Arthur Criticos and the fourth ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. Jean was a loving wife of Arthur Criticos and the mother of their children Bobby and Kathy Criticos. So this is the family that's moving into the glass house. They had no idea that their deceased wife/mother was one of the ghosts that had been captured by Cyrus and is now trapped in that house. So Jean loved her family deeply, but they tragically lost her one night when, while she and Arthur were sleeping in front of the fireplace, a stray log rolled out and set the Christmas tree alight, quickly starting a house fire. Arthur unintentionally abandoned Jean to save Bobby and Kathy, wrongly assuming that Jean would go outside and wait for them, and the left side of her face and body was horribly burnt by the fire. The burnt Jean was taken to St. Luke's Hospital, where she died of her burns. Next we have the Torn Prince, who is the ghost of Royce Clayton and is the fifth ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. So Royce was born in 1940 and was discovered to be a gifted baseball player in high school, despite his attitude problems and superiority complex. As a destined all-star player, he was offered first-class scholarships from various colleges, all of them offering the best opportunity to leave his small-town life. However, fate threw a curveball when Royce was 17, Johnny, a greaser that challenged him to a drag race, but unbeknownst to Royce, had cut a brake line in his car prior to the event. This, of course, caused Royce to lose control of the car, resulting in an accident which tore a large amount of flesh off his chest, as well as the right side of his face. This incident quickly ended Royce's life. Weapons: a baseball bat. In death, he wields his baseball bat as a weapon with brutal force. Whenever he uses it, it is like the way a baseball player would use a bat. Next, we have the Angry Princess. So, the Angry Princess is the ghost of Dana Newman and the sixth ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. Dana Newman was incredibly beautiful in life. According to Cyrus, she had the natural looks of a goddess, but was unable to recognize her beauty. Her self-loathing and low self-esteem, from which doctors tried to save her from, was only fueled by a series of abusive boyfriends and led her to having breast implants, nose jobs, and other unnecessary procedures. One night, while Dana was alone in a clinic where she worked, she tried to perform surgery on herself due to an imaginary imperfection on her face, but the unorthodox procedure went horribly awry and left her blinded in one eye. She then gave up on beauty and committed suicide in her bathtub by slashing herself with a butcher's knife until she bled to death. When her body was discovered, she was described by her loved ones as being beautiful in death as she was in life. Her weapon is a butcher's knife. In her ghost incarnation, the Angry Princess wields the butcher knife she used to kill herself with. Next, we have the Pilgrimess. So the Pilgrimess is the ghost of Isabella Smith and the seventh ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. During colonial times, circa 1600 to 1790, Isabella Smith sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to a New England town in search of a better life. But the tight-knit townsfolk didn't trust outsiders, and Isabella became isolated from the rest of the town. When the town's livestock began to die mysteriously shortly after her arrival, Isabella was accused by the local preacher of witchcraft. She denied the claim, but when the preacher fell ill, the town quickly turned against her and cornered her in a barn. They lit the structure on fire, but Isabella emerged, completely unscathed. Instead of a quick death, Isabella was sentenced to a slow, painful death in the stocks, where kids stoned her, men cursed at her, and women spat at her until she eventually died of starvation weeks later. Okay, next we have the Great Child. And the Great Child is a ghost of Harold Shelbourne, and the eighth ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. Born to Margaret Shelbourne as a result of rape by the tall man, Harold was raised in a carnival as an attraction and his mother's protector. Because Margaret never stopped spoiling him, Harold not only weighed 136 kilograms by his later years, but somehow retained his childlike mindset his entire life to the point that he never grew out of diapers. Because of this, Harold and Margaret were taunted and teased at every turn. One day, some circus workers kidnapped Margaret as a cruel joke on Harold. In a rage-fueled search for his mother, Harold ransacked most of the carnival, but when he found her, she had already suffocated in the bag the workers had kept her in. Enraged, Harold killed the circus workers responsible for Margaret's manslaughter with an axe, as well as a lot of other freaks, not knowing they weren't actually responsible, and put their remains on display for paying customers. When the carnival broker Jimbo found out what Harold had done, he ordered an angry mob to confront and horribly execute Harold. Weapon is an axe. In death, he still carries the axe he used to kill the other circus freaks when he was looking for his mother. He's never seen using it, but is implied that he knows how to use it in death. Speaking of his mother, that is the next ghost. The dire mother is the ghost of Margaret Shelbourne, and the ninth ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. Margaret grew up to be a mere 3 feet in height, and even her own mother would sometimes dress her up like a doll. She could never stand up for herself because of her pint size and was constantly stared at and picked on as a result of it. Seeking acceptance, Margaret joined Jimbo's carnival, but found this life as an attraction for people to goggle at, just as horrible. While Margaret was sweeping up a donkey pen one night, another carnival freak called the Tall Man attacked and raped her, causing her to become pregnant and give birth to her son Harold. Margaret never stopped spoiling Harold as he grew, causing him to remain in diapers his entire life and to retain his infant mindset. But Margaret didn't care. One day the circus workers kidnapped Margaret as part of a cruel joke on her and her son and kept her in a sack where she suffocated. The next ghost is called the Hammer. So this is the ghost of George Markley and is the 10th ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. George Markley was an honest, hardworking blacksmith until a racist man named Nathan wrongfully accused George of theft and threatened to banish him from the town they live in. Knowing he was innocent, George stood up to Nathan and refused to move, causing Nathan and his gang to one day beat George's wife and children to death to send him the cruel message to move or he would suffer the same fate as his family. Enraged, George tracked down Nathan and his friends and brutally beat them to death with his sledgehammer. When the town discovered what George had done, they dragged him back to his shop where they tied him to a tree and drove railroad spikes into his body with his own sledgehammer, slowly killing him. Then, as a finishing touch, the sadistically racist townfolk cut off George's hand and fixed George's sledgehammer in its place. So his weapon, of course, is a hammer. In his ghost incarnation, his hammer replaces his left hand, which he uses with lethal force. He also has spikes, and it is shown that he can actually remove these spikes from his body and use them as weapons. The guy is pretty beastly. Okay, next we have probably one of the creepiest ghosts out of the bunch, and this one is called the Jackal, who is the ghost of Ryan Kuhn, and this is the 11th ghost featured in the Black Zodiac. So, born to a prostitute at some point in the year 1887, Ryan Kuhn grew up to develop a sick, insatiable, and uncontrollable taste for women. As a result, he became a wild and cunning sexual predator, attacking, raping, and murdering strays and prostitutes in the dead of night like a wild animal. Seeking treatment, Ryan committed himself to Boren Asylum, where he eventually went insane. He scratched at his cell's walls so violently that his fingernails were torn completely off, making his hands claw-like. When Ryan attacked a nurse, the doctors decided to put him in a straitjacket and tightened it whenever Ryan acted out, contorting his limbs horribly. However, Ryan gnawed through it, so the doctors locked Ryan's head in a cage-type helmet and locked him in a dark basement cell where he grew to hate any human contact and would cower and scream madly whenever approached. When a fire broke out at the asylum while everyone else escaped, Ryan chose to stay behind and meet his deserved fate, and he apparently died in the fire. Like, do you see how creepy the Jackal looks? It is insane. We have the Juggernaut next. So, the Juggernaut is the ghost of Horus, the Breaker, Mahoney, and the 12th ghost to be featured in the Black Zodiac. So, Horus was abandoned by his mother almost immediately after birth and was raised by his father. As a child, Horus grew to such a grotesque height and appearance that he was constantly ostracized and spent his childhood as an outcast. Mr. Mahoney put Horus to work at his junkyard, chopping and crushing up old cars. When Mr. Mahoney died, Horus was left alone and finally, with no one to guide him, went insane as a result. He became a serial killer, picking up hitchhikers and stranded motorists to take back to his junkyard. There, he would rip them apart with his bare hands and feed the remains to his dogs. This preferred method of murder was what earned him the nickname the Breaker. Horus's seventh to-be victim turned out to be an undercover police officer who had a SWAT team surround the junkyard and arrest Horus. However, Horus was able to break free of his handcuffs and killed 3 police officers before he was gunned down by 5 SWAT officers. They then added one final volley of shots into him just to be sure that he was dead. And the Juggernaut is actually the ghost that they are haunting in the very beginning of the movie that starts off the entire thing. Lastly, we have Arthur Criticos, who is also known as the Broken Heart, and he was actually meant to be the 13th ghost in the Black Zodiac. So Arthur was a math teacher as well as the loving and caring husband of Jean, who was the Withered Lover, and father of Bobby and Kathy Criticos. However, one night Jean was horribly burnt by a fire caused by a stray log from the fireplace while lighting the Christmas tree, and later died in hospital. Arthur was deeply heartbroken by this, and he and his family were forced to move into a cramped apartment and hire Maggie Bess as a nanny for Bobby. One day, however, their lawyer Ben Moss visits Arthur and his family with news that Arthur's uncle, Cyrus, has been seemingly killed and that they have inherited his mansion. You guys, I could not find the rest of my footage, so I don't have myself closing out the rest of the story/video, but that is basically it. Sorry for the abrupt finish on that story time kind of thing, and please excuse the audio for the remainder of this video. I totally forgot I had my microphone plugged in and I was not using it. Okay, you guys, this is the final set.
I really wish these could have been letters, but it is what it is. So I've got their spellbound windows here. The spirits are inside. And then, of course, once you put your glasses on, you will be able to see the glow of the spell and then the blood stains. So these are UV, so once you go out in the sun, look at that. Oh, I love that. They came out so perfectly. And then, of course, we've got the glow in the dark, quote unquote, Latin.
So that is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me as always. I hope you enjoyed and have a safe Halloween. See you guys later.